a lead from our lead section here, and we will generate an estimate in this section, and then that estimate will convert over into a job, and that's where we can view that estimate again here in the program. And the importance of that is that, your proposal to your client, for the most part, should stay the same, but there will be some changes depending on how you do your bidding and how you grant allowances and so forth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out by talking about our estimate section as if we had just converted a lead into a job, which means we've got a signed contract. And what we can do here is in this section for general items, I'm going to go ahead and import an estimate from Excel, which we can do right here. Let's see if I can find an estimate. So if you guys are doing estimates outside of the program, we can always import them for you just like we're doing here. Okay?
Okay.
So we're just mapping our columns. Our cost codes will need to match, and if they don't match, we can, line them up. So now the HVAC matches with HVAC, so forth and so on. All right, and let's finish this out. So I just brought in our estimate, and hypothetically, just imagine this came over from our lead. We were working on this in the lead section, and now we have an estimate put together that's got all of the things that we have estimated out for our client. So we've got every piece of this new home in our general section, okay?
Okay.
All the way down to the landscaping. Now, what I'm going to do now is these are our rough estimates of what it's going to cost to do these certain things. So let me find one as an example. So framing labor, we estimated that is going to cost us $36,438. Now that's a pretty good guess, and we probably use our pre-existing knowledge of the market. We know how our trades have been coming in at a certain price, but when we come down to it, we need to actually import our actual bid price. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now jump from our estimate and start putting in our actuals, because a lot of times maybe we're not getting bids simultaneously at the same time in which we're getting a contract signed, right? So we have to come back in and put in our actuals so we can do more accurate cost tracking. So we can see here we've already got some bid packages put in, and I'm going to put in another one for framing labor. So we're going to request a bid from our trade, and this is essentially the best way to stay organized with all the requests for pricing that you're getting, and it'll keep it historically job after job, year after year, so that way you can look back and sort and export and find out what prices you've been getting on all your projects to then begin doing better estimates. So I'm going to go ahead and assign a line item to this, and we can put in a scope of work here. We would attach our files here, so our plans, our blueprints would all go here.
Okay.
So that we can get a really good, accurate price from our trade. And here's where we would assign the different trades that do our framing. Right? So
Okay.
I'm going to assign one right here.
Matt Car Construction is one that we use.
All right, we'll assign that to Matthew Carr and hit save. Because with a cost plus job, you want to make sure you know exactly what it's going to be that you're going to be charging your client. So with this, we're going to go into our framing labor package. We're going to open up Matt Carr, and we're going to go ahead and put in his quote. Now, obviously, you have the ability to incorporate and bring your trades into Buildertrend with you so that they can submit these by using their access you've granted into Buildertrend, so you don't have to manually put it in. But in some cases, trades may not want to participate in Buildertrend, or maybe they're not sure how to use it. You can go ahead and edit the bid on their behalf, which is what I'm going to do now. And let's say it's actually going to cost $38,000. And we could have multiple trades on this package, not just a 1-to-1 ratio. We could have, 4 or 5 different framers that could come in here and bid this out. But in this situation, this is the best one we got. Okay?
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and accept his bid because that's the best price for our budget. I'm going to go ahead and approve that bid, and it gives you the ability to notify the winning and losing trades.
Okay.
So all of your requests for pricing can be done in one location. It can be done seamlessly by sending out the packages anonymously through Buildertrend per job, and it's going to keep all those prices in one central location. So now that we've got an accepted bid, I'm going to jump back to our estimate here. So we originally estimated that it was going to cost $36,438, and in reality, our bid came out to be $38,000.
Mm-hmm.
So now that we have framing labor in here as an actual bid, this is bottom dollar what we're going to pay. Our estimate doesn't necessarily apply right now, and we can go ahead and come up here and we can get that out of our estimate. So I'm going to take that out, because the true amount that we're going to be paying is $38,000.
Okay.
So now it's going to adjust our price, and that's all going to be in there. Now we're going to continue working on this. I'm going to jump to our Format tab and our Preview, and your client will be able to see this line for line, and in a cost plus situation, that's important. So if you had to re-release this to them because the framing labor had gone up from the time in which you estimated it, let's say 6 months ago,
Mm-hmm.
you thought you had a pretty good price kind of nailed down, but the cost of materials went up, and framing labor, has changed. So, right now you need to get a new approval on this. So you can re-release this to the client for a new approval on this estimate in a cost plus situation. So next we're going to talk about putting in our allowances as well. So maybe we're going to give them an allowance for appliances. So we estimated this amount for appliances. I'm going to go jump from our estimate to our selections, and all these things converge and link up in the estimate section because they're all different working pieces that all feed into the estimate. So here I'm going to create an allowance, and the reason we're creating an allowance is because the client needs to go out and make choices off of that allowance, and it doesn't have any actionable capabilities. If you just have it sitting there as a number in the estimate, you need to add it as an actual allowance. So I'm going to go New Allowance. We're going to go Appliance Allowance. We're going to give it a line item so it flows through to our budget. And that's the amount that we had in the estimate, which matches.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll link that to a selection later on. And we can make as many allowances as we like. We can have shared allowances, and all of this will feed back into that estimate. So just remember, bids feed into here, selections feed into this,
Okay.
and we're going to come over here and talk about putting in our contractor fee. So again, the same way we came in and removed out our actual estimate, we're going to do the same thing for our appliances. So take appliances out of our general items because that exists now in our allowances here. So now you can see the breakdown of general items, allowances and selections, and bid prices. So that keeps our original contract price in line, except for, we had the uptick in bid price for framing labor.
Okay.
Now we need to account for our contractor fee. So we don't have a cost code in here for that. So we can always come in and create cost codes. So we're going to create one right now. We're going to put it in a category for completion and inspection. We'll call it we'll just call it that. We can change it later. So we have general contractor fee. So here is our total amount of cost. We're going to choose contractor fee. We're going to take this dollar amount, place it in here. So 15%. Let me get these commas out of here. And if I did my math correct here, we took the total amount of our contract price, our cost, which is 227 there, and we placed that in here to our quantity, and then we put in our percentage. So maybe if you have a 15% contractor fee, I think that math is right, and that's $34,000 is your fee. Let me check my math on my computer. Does that kind of make sense how I did that?
Yes.
Yep, that's correct. So now we can go ahead and hit add. So we just put in, a decimal point here instead of a percentage, so that's 15%, and hit add.
Okay.
And now we've added $34,000 for our general contractor fee, and that's up to our total contract price. Okay?
Okay.
So imagine, big picture here, we're working on an estimate for a client. We're getting rough numbers. That's pro forma estimating. We're using our knowledge of the market, our knowledge of how things have worked in previous projects, putting together a rough contract to get our client signed, and then we begin working towards getting our actual costs for a cost plus job, which we've done by putting in our allowances, putting in our actual bids so that we can get the most accurate price for what we're going to be charging our client, plus we include our fee.
Okay.
Questions so far?
No, sir.
Okay. So imagine working on this where you continue building in your bids as those bids come in. And the goal here is to make sure that you're pushing your contracts through without holding up waiting for these bids from the trades. And maybe you don't do that much bidding, so maybe it's not that big of an issue, and you would only just need to work exclusively with your general items and your allowances if you already know that your bid prices are set. So just remember, this isn't mandatory that you go in and add your bids down here.
Okay.
If you bid before you actually submit your proposal to your client, that's totally fine. You don't need to do this.
Okay.
But the allowances is a nice feature so that when they actually go in and choose the items that they're going to be putting into the home, you can do that. So the next step that we need to do now that we've got this finalized is we want to go ahead and release this to the client. So if our client is active with us in BuilderTrend, they're going to be participating and have their own login to their own owner portal. We would release it to them, and they could sign off on our finalized budget for a cost plus job. In this situation, I'm just going to approve it internally so we get some more features available to us.
Okay.
So imagine now this is our client, our customer just signed off on that budget, and that's what they intended to pay in your cost plus job. Now, the thing that a lot of people forget about is that even after that's signed, sealed, and delivered, your price of materials may go up and change. Now, you're locked in at that price. You're locked in at that GC fee, 15%, $34,000. But there's going to be instances where prices change, and we now give you the ability to put in a new expected, or what we might call an estimate to completion. Because if you're doing cost tracking now off of this finalized budget, and the cost of, let's say, structural steel has gone up by 10% in the marketplace, just for whatever reason, your cost tracking on 3,900 here is going to be way off, because maybe the actual price of that material has gone up to 4,200. Or maybe windows, there's been some sort of increase with the Windows provider you go with, so forth and so on. So now, when we go to our budget, which I'm going to jump to here, and this is where we're going to begin doing our line item cost tracking to ensure that everything that we're paying for, that the client is then paying for, is being managed. So if we go over, that's going to come out of our end, right? So we need to make sure that we're spot on. So we now have our original and our new expected. So if I come in here to our new expected now, and I'm going to make some alterations to this. So I'm going to jump in our new expected. So plumbing is a good example. So the plumber's always telling you how much the cost of copper is going up and up. And sure enough, when the final price comes in for what your plumbing is going to be, maybe it's gone up to $16,500.
All right.
Off of an original of $15,000. Now, $15,000 is what the client is going to pay, but in a cost plus job, maybe you're going to push that on to them. And I'm going to go to our budget now. Alright, so now we put in that adjusted price for plumbing. Let's find it here in our... So right here, we originally estimated this amount, and for whatever reason, the actual is going up to here. So now when we do cost tracking, we're not going to be over budget. We're going to be on point with our budget because we made our adjustments to our new expected, or what we call, an estimate to completion. So that way we're not missing some of those finite numbers that start costing us money on the job.
Okay.
Kind of make sense?
Yes.
As things change, you got to make adjustments to your budget.
Oh yeah.
And the new expected will do that for you. So now that we've adjusted our new expected, or maybe we continue to adjust our new expected as the job goes on, we can now begin actually putting in our invoices, our actual costs. So I'm going to come in and talk to you about two methods. One, we have purchase orders, which is designed for having a trade agreement with your subs so that you can get a scope of work, a lien waiver, and all that kind of bundled up into one area so that you can accurately record the price of the work that they've done, and then also go on and move to make payment to them. So I clicked on a new purchase order, and I'm going to use our plumber as an example. And I'm going to title it, I'm going to call it Plumbing Costs, because this is a cost plus job. We're going to assign it to our sub that actually did the labor. So here maybe it's the plumber right here we hired, and we're going to use our cost code. And if you remember, we originally estimated it was going to be $16,500. And this is going to be labor and materials. And then with in our scope of work is where we would put our contractual agreement with this trade, because with a plumber, an electrician, HVAC, that's some hefty work that has a lot of cost associated with it. You're going to want to put together a contractual agreement with them and send it to them via builder trend so they can sign off on it as well as sign their lien waivers all in one step.
Okay.
And if you remember when we created that bid, which I'll show you in a little bit of our framing labor package, you can convert bid packages into POs and it auto-populates it with all the information that I just entered. So the real goal would be to put in good bid packages to then create POs or purchase orders with little or no effort. Okay? So now we've got the scope of work. So here's where all our contractual information will go. Any files or plans will go here, and we'll go ahead and hit save. So once this saves, you're going to see a three-step workflow appear at the top of this purchase order. So one, we're waiting for the trade to approve the work order. We've submitted it to them, and once they approve, this will change from gray to green, and that means that we're good to start work. Once they've completed the work, we'll obviously mark it here, and then lastly, we can move to make payment. Now, depending on what type of business you guys are running, sometimes we make progress payments to these trades, which a lot of people do. So you don't have to mark complete to get to this step in the workflow.
Okay.
We can come in here and make partial. So the first thing I'm going to do, and in a perfect builder trend world, your sub-trade would sign off on this through builder trend, but in this situation, I'm just going to approve it manually. So imagine I'm Mr. Sub, and I approve this work order. They agree upon this price because that's what they quoted you, so there's no question there, and they read your terms and conditions for getting this project completed. So now if I scroll down to my line here, plumbing final, so our original estimate was 15, our new expected is 16.5, and our actual is 16.5. So we're spot on with our new expected, and that's going to be helpful for us to better budget this job.
Okay.
So now if I want to expand on plumbing final, it's going to take me right down to my purchase order. So you can expand it down, and I'm going to open up my purchase order again. Now I'm going to come in here and make a progress payment to this seller or vendor. So again, if they are invoicing you, you can add the invoice date here. You can assign a lien waiver. So we're going to apply this lien waiver, and if you guys have multiple different types of lien waivers, we can import them for you so that you can pick from that drop down and apply the proper lien waiver.
Okay.
So we're going to attach it, jump back to our payment info so that way they sign the lien before they get paid. And we're going to go ahead and make a partial. Let's say we're going to pay them, $5,000 kind of mobilization money to get them on the job. So we'll go ahead and make partial. And if we were linked to QuickBooks right now, this is where our financials would flow over to QuickBooks. And all we would need to do is go ahead and cut the checks from QuickBooks, because all this data would flow over to QuickBooks. And we'd get that, quick and easy recording of our actuals. So now that that's been paid, we can jump back to our budget. Our budget will refresh. And I can see in my line item here that we've paid. And let me shore this up a little bit. We've paid $5,000 on a total cost of $16,500. We have $11,500 left to pay, and then we can sort by our new expected versus total PO, and it's going to show us where we're coming in at, or our estimate versus total cost rather, and that's going to be very helpful for tracking where we come in at on our budget.
Okay.
So you can see our estimate versus our new expected. We would have been off by $1,500 if we hadn't recorded our new expected cost.
Okay.
If I want to do my new expected versus total cost, all that's going to start adding up here. So
Okay.
we were zero. We were flat on this because we did our new expected.
Okay.
If we hadn't done our new expected, we would have been over in the red by $1,500.
Okay.
So next, now that that's done, let's talk about pushing through some bills. So bills are more suited for things like setting up our temporary electric pole, or maybe we're just paying for the blueprints, which is just a service. Or maybe just our permits. Our permits are $100, hypothetically. I'm going to come in and do a new bill, and the bill is designed the same way a purchase order is, except it doesn't have that workflow of approved, work complete, and paid. All we're doing is we're giving it a title, total blueprint cost. We'll assign it to the company that does our blueprints, and I'm just going to assume Airmax does blueprints. We'll find our cost code. And maybe it costs $115. So if we had an invoice from them or receipt, we could attach it right here. We could even do a bill right from our phone using the Builder Trend app. So let's say we go and pick up the blueprints, we have the receipt in our hand, snap a picture, attach it to a bill, and just basically give it a cost code so it can flow through our financials, assign it to the trade, and if we're linked to QuickBooks, all of a sudden, boom, this shows up in QuickBooks, and all you need to do at the end of the week is cut your checks to those folks or push that cost towards the credit card you put this on.
Okay.
So, again, we're going to jump back into our budget, and just every day we kind of see where we're lining up here. And the last thing I'm going to show you before we get too far along is we can now illustrate how this shows through to our client. So maybe in blueprints here, I should have put it under building permits, but this is a cost of $115, and we have this much remaining in that budget, in that line item. Okay? Let me jump to my estimate here. We have the ability to display this to the owner, which is very helpful in a cost plus job, which I'm going to do now. If we click here and display to the owner, they're going to be able to log into their portal, which we'll jump to next. And let's go here. So our client can see our budget, and they can see our estimate. So right here, this is the estimate that we just pushed forward so that they can see. And of course, I didn't turn on the, oh, there it goes. Perfect. So now they can see their budget.
Okay.
And this now will transpose here into the budget as well. I think that looks really clean. They can print it if they want. It's got your logo there. And I jumped over to budget, and you can see here all of the invoices that we've been accumulating by pushing them through the program in our bills or in our POs, depending on what type of service or materials we're purchasing. You can see our temp electric here. Has it been paid? Has it not been paid? Has it been approved? And then also how that feeds into our budget.
Okay.
So for a cost plus situation, I think this shows really well.
Oh, yeah.
If they're worried about, okay, well, how much, we have a budget of 7,832 for framing labor. Well, we haven't started that yet, so it hasn't occurred any actual cost, but this is their actual column. And it helps kind of showcase what their bottom line is.
Okay, yeah.
So for involving your client, offering that transparency to them, I think this is a great way to do that. And if they need to make payments to you, if you're submitting draw payments to them, progress payments to you based on what costs you've incurred, this is where that would be. So, again, we haven't filled out too much of that, but the contract price is here, and we could come back in here and go straight into owner payments. Questions so far?
No, sir.
All right. Is there anything else you'd like me to cover with regard to financials? And change orders can be done just as easily from the mobile phone, the mobile app. We encourage you to use the mobile app for your change orders because it's very seamless. In this case, I'm just going to use the desktop application to do a change. So more often than not, clients are seeing things on the internet. People are looking at pictures on Houzz and Pinterest, and they're building a house and they want to change something because they think, this is the way they want to do it. So you got to listen to the customers, and change orders can be a huge pain. So, upgrade, let's say, lighting fixtures in the kitchen, or maybe lighting fixtures in the master bath. So we want to title it. We want to give it a line item as always, so it flows through to our budget. And let's find electrical fixtures right there.
All right.
And it's going to cost an extra, let's say, $850. We don't mark up because, we don't do that for our cost plus jobs, but if we wanted to add our general contractor fee, we could. So it's going to be $850, 5, and there's our general contractor fee.
Okay.
And then next we come down and put in the scope. There were sub notes. If we wanted to add a sub that's going to be maybe our electrician is the one that's going to handle this and order the materials, we can add them right here.
Okay.
Give them notes or owner notes specifically. We give them a deadline so that way you're not spending time waiting for them to approve this. So we'll give them to Monday, and they got to pay us by Tuesday. So that way you're not financing your customers in advance, and just this will come through as a separate invoice to the client. So don't worry that you're going to have to separate this out and add it to an owner invoice. The change order produces its own invoice once it's approved. So we'll go ahead and release it to the client. Now that it's been released to the client, if our client was logged into Builder Trend, which I'm going to jump to the owner's page right now, and you can see that they would have gotten a notification to their phone or email. Their phone would light up and say, okay, you got a change order. They would come into their mobile app or their desktop application and say, oh yeah, this is what we asked for. Okay, the price is right here. And they can open up the change. They could make comments on it. And now you'll be able to reply and let them know, well, this is what the vendor charged us, and we're not doing anything other than what we would typically do. Make comments back and forth so you're not spending time on the phone and email. It's all contained within Builder Trend.
Okay.
And once they finally confirm that they want to approve this change, they go approve, and now your client is going to sign it. Now that we have a signed change order, we can go back to our area here where we've got this change order, and we'll now convert this into an actual cost. Signature flows through. If we wanted to print this, we could. So you're always going to have documentation of the change. The signature flows right into the signature line here. The price, and it's all set up for you.
I lost connection with Zoom somehow.
Yeah, I was just showcasing how you can print this if you wanted to.
Okay.
So it's nice to know that any given time you could pull up your change orders from the past. If there's questions about them, you know that it's all documented within one central area, and your price flows right through here.
Okay. And where are we at? Back on our screen where we cut out, where did we get to get to this? Okay, it's under the change orders then. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And if you ever want to view the owner's page, you just click on this little house here.
Yes, sir.
And now that that's been approved, we can push that cost on through to our budget. Now, in this situation, since it is a cost plus, we're not going to, let's notate that our builder fee is not something we're doing cost tracking on.
Okay.
That's just going to be part of our invoice. So now if we need to just get the general contractor fee out, because we just need to send this purchase order to the electrician who's going to pick up the new fixtures. So we wouldn't want to attribute the fee to that. So I just took it off.
Okay.
And now again, we could save this, assign it to our subtrade for our electrician, and hit save. So when I bounce back to my budget now for this approved change, we're going to see it in our budget. Because we converted a change order into a purchase order to account for our actual cost.
Okay.
So you can see in our customer variance column, which is where all the change orders come through, we picked up a little bit of extra revenue off of this. And that's going to show through in our owner payments, but this is going to show our actual cost. And then our owner payments, if I jump here, you can see that the change order converted immediately into an owner payment. And I'll show that right here. So there's the pending invoice for the upgraded lighting fixtures, right in the owner payment, so they can make that separately right here, and you'll get payment on that change.
Okay.
All right, Brandon.